Well, I know we're starting a bit late. We're trying to get some stuff loaded up that we won't be able to use, so we're going to do it a little differently now. We're going to do it manually, eye to eye, person to person. I'm Terrence Howard, and I'm so honored to have been invited here to speak at Oxford. Chris is so magnificent. He's been the kindest person, and he's really an angel for you guys because he can bring a ton of people here just with his kind words. How many of you are interested in acting? None. Great. Maybe a couple of y'all. So, you know I didn't have any training as an actor, right? No? You know, I grew up in a real bad part of Cleveland, Ohio. Wore little girls' dresses for the first 2 years of my life because we didn't have any money for clothes for me. I managed to climb my way out of there by doing a fancy little thing called lying. You know? You guys do any of that? Back in 1986, when I started working in this business, there was no thing called the internet. So when I put my first resume together, since I was trying to go and get jobs, I'd go knock at doors and go and do castings, and nobody would take me seriously because I didn't have an agent and I didn't have a resume. So I put together a 3-page resume of all the projects that I wanted to do. And I put my name on them, starring in all these things, and that was my first resume. And it got me into the door, and as time went on over the last 35 years, I filled up that thing, so it's no more lies on my resume. It's all truth. But it wasn't lies then, it was what I was going to make happen. And that's what I want to say. Most of what you are trying to accomplish today or tomorrow is the same thing you were trying to accomplish 20 years ago. You're the same person that you were then. If you lose that little spark that kept you motivated, that little piece, like this is my vocation. I love acting half the time, but there's some downfalls of it. You know, a lot of actors end up with personality identity crisis and conflicts because you have so many characters you're playing. And if you really commit to the characters, you become like a piece of clothing. And your body becomes what they put on. And the character has a tendency of wanting to own you. They don't let go. What you saw in Anthony Hopkins and Hannibal Lecter, that monster lives in him. That's why we believed it. He had to tap into something very ugly in our human nature sometimes. And as an actor, sometimes I tap into beautiful things. But like with Lucius, and the character I play with Lucius, his life is filled with turmoil. So 90% of the day I'm walking around carrying his turmoil and also the turmoil from me and my own family. And then how do you have time to really bring yourself back to who you are? Because that's the most important thing. That's the thing that's going to bother you more than anything else. You will look at yourself one day and you won't know who you are because you don't remember who you were. You know, sometime along the way, or maybe at 13 or 14, we let go of the little person that kept us going. That little person that was always there, I got you, man, I'm here, I got you, don't go in there, I ain't going in there. That person, when we get about 13 or 14, we get embarrassed of him. And we push him aside and we don't listen to him anymore. And he's always knocking. Hey, hey. And after so long of a time, maybe 10, 15 years, you don't even know him. You show up at your own door and you don't even know who you are. Your family doesn't know who you are. So it's important, no matter what you do, no matter what challenges you go through, you remember who you are. You may think you've been here for 20 years on this planet, but we know that energy, it is forever. It doesn't die. It continually recycles itself. So you know that you've been a trilobite 350 million years ago, or some part of it. Some parts of you were part of a pterodactyl. Every one of us have been a part of everything in this universe. So if we tap into those things in ourselves and remember those things in ourselves, we have that power. Now, my vocation has been an actor, and I've loved that. I've been able to take care of my family as an actor, but that's never been my passion. I was an actor because it was like Jesus walking on water for tips, because he could do it. That's what he did. It was a natural thing for him. I've always been an empath. I've always been emotionally connected to everything. But the thing that I was most spiritually connected to, that was my driving force, was physics. It was wondering how the universe really came to be. And I fell in love with this thing called the flower of life. You guys know Da Vinci? Do you know what he spent most of his life trying to figure out? Who in here knows the flower of life? Couple? I'm gonna get you something. Because I want you guys to know.
Do you want me to hold it?
Huh?
Do you want me to hold it? Okay.
No, I'm gonna hold it up. I want you guys to know about a 6,000-year-old secret. 6,000 years, mankind has been trying to decipher this one little thing called the flower of life. Now, do you know the flower of life? Have you guys ever seen this before? Now, you know this is one of the oldest symbols in human history, right? Or do you not know? This symbol was found in the Temple of Osiris in Egypt, and it had been molecularly burned into the wall, and it's 6,000 years old. This same symbol has been found in the forbidden temples in China, sitting under the fufu dogs, and the foot on it, the flower of life, saying whoever controlled that flower of life controlled the universe. There were secrets in that flower of life that Da Vinci spent his whole life trying to uncover. There were secrets in that flower of life that Newton spent his whole life in secret trying to uncover. The same secrets that Pythagoras was desperately trying to uncover. But their problem was they kept seeing this in a two-dimensional space. They couldn't get it out of this two-dimensional frame, and as a result, they got stuck in this plane, a flat plane. Now, what Da Vinci and all of them wanted to do, they were trying to find a way to bring this flower to life, because what is inside of it? Well, apparently, there were secrets inside of it. Shapes, they got the Merkaba and all of those other things out of it. But they were misled by something I think called a straight line. You guys believe in straight lines? You believe there's straight lines in the universe? Well, let me hit you with something. All energy in the universe is expressed in what? It's in motion. If something is still, there's no energy. Kinetic, right? All motion is expressed in what? You look at galaxies, are they expressed in straight lines? Expressed in vortices. All vortices are expressed in what? Waves. All waves are curved. Show me a straight line in nature. You show me where the platonic solids come from. Where do they have their foundations in our universe? Are there any straight lines? If you look at anything, there are no straight lines. That's been the mistake. We've been looking at these straight lines, this Euclidean way of thinking, and missing the curvature of nature. So here we are, back with the curvature of nature, and you have all these little pieces. Now, this has always been an information system. So compare some of these points, take a point here, and say, well, what's the space in between all of these things? Now, they've said that all the in-between spaces, if this is the Earth and this is the moon right here, all this in-between space is filled with what? A void. There's nothing in the void. Well, I found that there is something in the void. The elementary fundamental particles that they've been searching for at the CERN collider, the Hadron Collider in CERN, I found that their energy signatures matched perfectly to some of the pieces that I was able to pull out of here. So I'm gonna bring some of those now. Do I have a minute? Am I good? Okay. Now, all of this was supposed to be on a projector for you guys. I don't have that. So what I do have is a bit of a Chanel bag, or an old Chanel bag, a box, as it were. And we're going to talk about a couple of items in here that are so hard to even express here. Afterwards, y'all going to have to just take a look at these. My God, I won't have the time to do it. I couldn't show you, but I am going to show you. I didn't come here not to show you. Now, whether you guys are able to express, understand some of these things, Lord help me. Get confused. What I've done is I've figured out about 7 different elementary particles, fundamental particles. And then there were secondary generational particles that seemed to occur. And when these things began to build up more and more, they began to create their own systems. And these systems is what I've brought to Oxford because I would like for you guys to examine them, put them to test. Because I bet you will find all the fundamental particles that they've been looking for in the unified theory of the universe. It's a big statement, but I've got a lot of stuff to back it up if given the opportunity to do so. But the flower of life has been opened, and when we get an opportunity, I'd love to show you some of these things. Can I go on?
Yep, you good?
Mm-hmm. I can't, without being able to show the pieces, it's a whole different monster. But all of these wave conjugations, all of these states of matter, all of these things, it's time for that to be changed now. We have changed all of our buildings to be aerodynamic. Our airplanes are no longer based on a two-dimensional Euclidean way of life. But our math is still based on a two-dimensional way. And I think in order for us to reach the future, we have to examine that. Do you guys know about loops in math? Do you believe in loops? Do you know the square root of 2? Do you think that's a loop? Do you believe that the square root of 2 is the square root of 2? Yes or no? Hands up, no? Hello? Oh, I want y'all to take out your phone for a minute then. We're gonna do one thing. Everybody got a phone? Put it on the calculator and turn it to the side so you can get all the long numbers out of it. Okay? Now I want you to put in 2 and square root it. 2, hit the square root, you'll get 1.414213562373095 ... right? Now I want you guys to do me a favor, cube it. It'll see right over there, it'll be x to the 3. Can y'all do it? Have you cubed it? It'll see 2.828427121746190. Now that makes sense. I want you guys to do me a favor, divide it by 2. Get that number? Cube it again. Divide it by 2, cube it again, and I want you to do that until the end of your lives. And that number will still come up with 2.828427121746190. Any other number that above 2, that you put in and you cube and you cube and square and divide by 2, by the 6th operation, it has moved into an exponential number that you can't even imagine. Any number below 2 that you do that same operation with, it will go into an exponentially small matter and number. This is what we call a loop. It is illogical, it doesn't make sense, and it does not make math make sense. So these are some things that I'm bringing to the fore and that I would like to question. I would like to audit the math, the world of mathematics, and I would like to audit how we view the Platonic solids, because I think the new wave conjugations will tell a better story of how our world works. And that's it. It wasn't quite what I thought for, Chris.
Yeah,
but I wanted my pictures. You guys got it, and y'all won't even have time afterwards. But I've spent 45 years searching these things out and trying to figure out what the universe really, how it really worked. And we've come to find that the universe, they are abandoning the standard model, the ideas of black holes and dark matter, for an electric model of the universe that is in response to the Birkeland currents and all these things. It's a better version, a better vision of how we should see the universe. That's how I see it, and I think it should be explored.
So just to add some context to this, Terrence and I have spent the afternoon together, and Terrence has showed me a lot of this and explained to my feeble mind basically what he's theorizing. I thought the couple of things that you showed me that I thought were really good were how you explaining the story about how originally the flower of life, everybody just followed the lines and didn't understand the space, and you have the quite good models in there
Yes.
of how they connect together and how you have managed to put it into a 3D shape rather than just people looking at 2D.
2D.
Perhaps you want to explain a little bit about that.
Yeah, the idea of, like one of the things I've been saying, the Euclidean mindset has kept us so locked away. Like there's tons of paperwork of Da Vinci working on the flower of life and trying to unravel it. But every single existence, every single example, you see him making straight lines and trying to make these straight lines bend in, and therefore he was never able to open it up because all the universe is curved, all space is curved. And as a result, what I was doing in trying to find these straight lines, I abandoned the idea of the straight line. The shortest distance between 2 points is curved space because you cannot force your way straight through space. Even electricity, as it moves from a southern plane to a northern plane, it always goes northeast in its direction. And magnetism, as it expands out, it goes southwesterly. And that's the spin. That's how you always know whether it's magnetism or electricity. It's the spin. Is it northeast or is it southwest? But in trying to define curved matter, I'm so sorry, I get so distracted. Trying to define the spaces, it allowed me to see that all of these in between, what we have been dealing with is these petals. All of mankind have dealt with these petals, but it's these other shapes that we've ignored constantly. Well, those other shapes were the in-between spaces. They were the things that filled up the vacuum of space. And all these particles that I have, I think are the full proof of that. And it is also the full proof of the wave particle argument.
Yeah, do you want to also explain a little bit about what your intention was in sort of bringing this up? And sort of because something you said was the next step is like, how do you apply this?
Well, here we are on this planet. Can I do that point? Our planet is moving away from our sun at 6 inches a year. You guys know that. 15 centimeters a year, our planet is pushing away from the sun. So in less than 500 million years, our planet will be out of the Goldilocks zone. We'll be somewhere near where Mars is, somewhere halfway between there. So life will not be able to be sustained on this planet anymore. So if we're going to be able to sustain ourselves as a species, we have to become interstellar. Not just interplanetary, you have to become interstellar. But with approximations, you cannot become interstellar. You cannot become interstellar with a point that will take you all the way over here with a straight line when the actual event is taking place over here. When you're going 600 quadrillion miles, you can't make a mistake. You need precision. And that's what the math is about. These pieces predict the natural distribution of matter and the distribution of where you can find yourself in that space, and I'm confident behind it. For 40 years I've worked on this, and I think it's ready. So
I've sat also at lunch, basically trying to get my head around this, and also was very, very, very skeptical, and I put my hands up and say that. And one of the things that you mentioned was sort of about how this applies to, I think it was the electric sun model, and that's where it's a theory that suggests that the sun is powered from external forces rather than nuclear fusion, which is the general consensus among scientists. And the reason for that is because there's not a production there's no evidence to suggest that the byproduct neutrinos are there. And
the neutrinos
what Terrence is trying to prove, I think, is that because the fact that you can't detect whether neutrinos are there or not, there must be another way in which they're powered. My argument to him is that to suggest that neutrinos don't exist, because we have a lot of evidence to not know that they're physically there, but a lot of the effects and how they interplay with other things, to suggest that they don't exist is not only to get rid of that small theory, but also quite a lot of other huge laws of physics.
Are they laws or are they ideas of physics?
Well, why don't you respond to that and talk about how a lot of people have that sort of narrow mindset? And sort of, you talked about identity.
Yeah, the identity element. The things that make our math works. Like if I said to you, what's 1 times 1? What'd you say, 1? It equals 1? Now, what would Newton say is that? Action times an action. That's a reaction, right? Anybody in here that thinks 1 times 1 equals 1, then you give me 2 pounds and I'll give you a pound back. And we'll call that even, right? Because 1 times 1 equals 1. An unbalanced equation. What we need to do is, the first thing in math is you're supposed to have a balanced equation. 1 times 1 equaling 1 is an unbalanced equation. But the identity element, which is like the Jim Crow laws of the 60s, they say that anything multiplied by 1 becomes that same number as itself. Well, the laws of physics has to break down in order for that to take place. Action and reaction for 1 times 1 to equal 1. In comparison to if I said, what's $1 times $1? Anybody know it's $1? Well, what's a dime times a dime, or 10 pence?
10 pence, yeah.
10 pence times 10 pence? That's a pound, right? 10 pence times 10 pence? Is that right, honey? Yeah, yes. What about 100 pence times 100 pence? That's a pound times a pound, right? That's $100, ain't it? What about a quarter? What about 4 quarters times 4 quarters? That's $1, right? That's a pound, right? Well, that's $4. Now, all of these things are legal. The banks can say $1 times $1 is $1 and give you that. Or the banks can say to a friend, $1 times $1 is a quarter times a quarter. It's 4 quarters times 4 quarters, and give that person $4. They can say to another person, $1 times $1 is 100 pence times 100 pence. That person gets $100. So that money is generated. And this is all legal. Do you think it's not happening in the banks? This is what 1 times 1 equaling 1 has got us. This inconsistency of our monies and our economy is sitting in the balance. And the rest of our future is sitting in the balance because our science has been stunted as a result of the problems in mathematics, because math asks for the basic laws of physics to break down in order for 1 times 1 to equal 1. In order for 1 times 0 to equal nothing, laws of conservation of energy has to disappear. And math is the foundating laws of math is supposed to support the laws of physics. They are arm in arm. They cannot be in controversy with each other. So we need an audit on the Platonic solids. We need an audit on the square root of 2, and we need an audit on action and reaction. Or we either got to get rid of, we say 1 times 1 equals 1, and there's no action and reaction. One or the other. You can't have both. And until we make that change, we're in trouble. We're going to be stunted as a species.
Great. Should we open up to questions from the audience?
No, I don't want to talk to them. Come on.
If you have a question, raise your hand nice and high. You can ask about the physics or the acting. Terrence is happy to. Yeah, let's start with
He's a lawyer, physicist. I'm an actor, physicist.
Thank you for coming. I just had a question about kind of acting and physics as well. Just like, I know that you said that physics was your drive and like how you are doing acting, and I just want to know like how you got academically like interested in physics itself, because I kind of feel like they're a little bit different, but I think that the bridge that you have between them are really cool.
No, everything is based on chemical reactions. In order for me to become a character, I have to change my chemical composition of how I'm thinking, and as a result, that changes how I position myself, which changes how the heat is generated and transferred out in and out of my body. Everything comes down to chemistry. You know, so acting in physics, in physics, when two things are drawn to each other, it's because they are of similar charge. It's not positive, because they say negatives attract. But cold air drops down. Does it attract to the hot air rising up? No, it passes right by each other because negatives, opposites don't attract. It's positives that attract to each other. Two positives drawn to each other, two negatives discharge each other. So it's all about physics to me. It's all about chemistry, and it's how the physics, how another actor is relating to me. A slight change in his body language changes my tone. It's all physics.
Okay, yeah. Anyone? Yeah, let's go to you.
Hey, Terrence. My name is Carrick, and I'm originally from Atlanta, Georgia. And so earlier you mentioned about acting, and I just had a question about the entertainment industry. Being that I'm from Atlanta, everyone swears they're a rapper or that they can rap. Even my grandma said she was dropping a gospel mixtape. So that's dropping this spring, apparently. And so I have an older brother who actually wants to get into the music industry. And it got me thinking about Hustle and Flow. It probably wasn't as gritty as Hustle and Flow was, but he's really trying to get his name out there. And so my question to you is, what advice would you have for someone who's trying to break into the entertainment industry, whether it be acting or music? Also, I got a copy of his songs on here if you want to listen to it on the way back home.
Well, you just said it right. You said break into the business. How do you break into something?
Oh, well, enter the business if that.
No, you had it right. Because they don't want you in there. Everybody else wants that job. They're trying to keep you out. So you have to break into the business. How do you break into something? It's a little cunning involved in that. And there's a little violence involved in that. It's aggression involved in breaking into something. So there's passion involved in that. And that passion is what's going to drive you. Wherever you're supposed to be. I can tell you, oh, go over to, to 5th and Dunbar, and it's going to happen for you over there. It's not going to happen there. It's going to happen for you when you actively work in concert with your desires. So you want to be an actor? You don't go to Saudi Arabia. You got to go to LA or New York in the States, and you do your time there. And my thing is, I have no toleration for rivalry whatsoever. It's not black eyes and bloody noses for me. It's life or death when I'm in that ring. And that ring is the set and the stage for me. So I'm coming in there to dismantle you. I'm coming in there to take away any falsehood that you have, that you were carrying yourself with. I want to shake that up with truth, and to where you don't even know your lines afterwards, that you're just sitting there. So if you can't come in ready for life or death, you think it's a black eye or bloody nose, you will lose your life in that game. You go in there and you destroy them, and you break into the business however you have to.
Great. Yeah, let's go to you in the glasses. Yeah, you. Yeah, you stand up.
So my question is, when you go to play parts or decide on what exactly you want to play in a movie or a series, do you look for specific things in a character that you're going to portray, or do you just immerse yourself into the character and see how it goes from there?
Yeah, I don't do all that little tricky stuff about, oh, I'm going to go and this character reads this or any of that stuff. You know me, I sit there and I try and look for what resonates with the character. Ooh, that, you suck. I hate that.
I'll get the other one.
If the truth is in the character, if the character is written well, you don't have to do anything. All you do is have to sit there and say the words. And somehow in the words, just little bells, like playing Candy Crush, little things just pop up out of nowhere, and you're just doing it, and you get lost in it. If you allow yourself, it's just a river, man. Get naked and ride in it and jump out when you get cold. But don't be afraid of the rapids, don't be afraid of the rocks. You just, jump out of the airplane and say, to hell with it,
Great, thank you for that question. Yeah, let's go to you in the red jumper.
Thank you for coming. I wanted to ask a question. You seem to be sitting on a wealth of knowledge and something that you've been working on for, how you put 40 years. I was going to ask, how are you living day-to-day life, knowing that the rest of the world is doing it, quote unquote, incorrectly?
Well, it's been 40 years of me dancing on this thing. For 40 years, I was told I was wrong. For 40 years, I was told that, the Platonic solids and all those were the solids. You have to have faith in self. All of this, I can sit up here and tell you guys that, I'm the smartest man in the world. I figured out what Da Vinci and none of them could do. The truth is, you really want to know the truth? This may be crazier than the fiction. The truth is, I woke up inside my mother's womb at about 6 months of age. I woke up inside of there. Like, boom. I don't know what had happened. Maybe my mother went through some trauma or whatever. But I woke up and I was like, oh, God, I'm here. I'm here. Don't forget, don't forget, don't forget, don't forget, don't forget. This is truth. Don't forget, don't forget, don't forget. Just go by. Every once in a while, I would think about something and this would come over. And I didn't know it was my hand. I thought it was a friend. I had my whole name for it. Inside that womb, you were conscious. You woke up, because with our son Kieran, when he was my wife was 6 months pregnant, we would put the light on her stomach and he would follow it and push on it. And then we'd put the music and we'd put it all the way over to the other side and he would crawl all the way over to the other side of the stomach and push at the light with the music. So what I'm saying to you, you are conscious inside the womb, but we have no common frame of reference. But I remembered, don't forget, don't forget, don't forget, because I knew I'd been here. Don't forget. And you know what I didn't want to forget? This flower of life. Because apparently I'd been interested in it at a given time. And I came out and I was born. The first thing I thought about when I was 5 years old, I was obsessed with bubbles. I was like, why does a bubble take the shape of a ball? Why not a square or a triangle? And I would go and try and make square or triangular bubbles. And we could never do it because it turns out everything expands as a sphere and everything contracts in geometric form. You drop a pebble into the pond, it expands in a perfect sphere unless there's something in the way. The moment it hits the edge of the shore and starts to come back, it's the contracting waves that hit the expanding waves that creates the initial geometries. Everything expands as a sphere, everything contracts in geometry in fifths, basically. So what I'm saying, and what I tried to tell you guys earlier, this is not your first time, it's not your first rodeo, and it won't be your last rodeo. Don't panic in this life. You can actually, there's no sense of death. Everything goes to sleep and it wakes back up again. Refolds and unfolds, refolds and unfolds. And if you're wise, if you're careful, because you can remember conscious moments in your life, can't you? You can remember moments when you're like, wait a minute, I'm in a bigger space than just this little body right here. You become fully aware of everything around you. And if you quiet yourself, you can think about those things. Well, apparently I did that at the last passage because when I came into this life, I woke up, remember, don't forget, don't forget, don't forget, don't forget, don't forget. And the first thing I did was worked out the flower of life. When I was 6 years old, I started making these pieces. What Da Vinci tried to do at 80, I did at 6 years old because I had been working on it perhaps from a past life. Now, I'm not trying to say I'm crazy or there's reincarnation or anything, but we know that energy does not die. Energy just reboots itself and reboots itself. So we are eternal, so stop panicking, thinking your life is over. You've done this trillions of times. You'll get good at it and we'll be perfect one time if we get conscious, but we have to get conscious. Because I can either say I'm the smartest man in the world, that I figured out what nobody else in the world could figure out. With Aristotle, with Plato, Pythagoras, all of them tried to figure this out, but I know I am not smarter than these men. So I know that there's something to the consciousness of carrying things through, because the information and the knowledge that I have, I didn't go to school. I had a 1.6 grade point average graduating from high school because I had other things to do. But this information kind of educated me along the way because I was born into it. And now I have the pieces to follow it, and hopefully Chris and maybe Oxford and will do some of the vetting for these things, and we can change the world. But if not, I'll keep doing it and I'll do it in the next lifetime. If not this one, and the next lifetime after that. Just remember, and another thing, don't forget, you know, you go from positive to negative, everything polarizes positive to negative, then more than likely, with each lifetime, male to female, male to female, if the universe is consistent. I think it is.
Great. Thank you for that question. Yeah, let's go to you.
Thank you very much for talking to us. And also, your view on consciousness and energy sounds very similar to what Dr. Robert Lanza proposes in biocentrism. So that may be of interest to you if you haven't read that text. But about 5 years ago, you spoke about harmonic wave sequencing and how that could
harmonic wave resequencing.
Resequencing, and how that could possibly solve cancer or genetic ailments within the next 5 years. I think that was about 5 years ago. So is there much progress on that? And how do you propose that this resequencing would actually recode people's genetics in order to prevent them from getting these ailments?
Simple. Our DNA is made up of what? 5 elements, right? Hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus, and oxygen. Do you know how they're arranged? The phosphorus sits right here in the middle, and you've got 4 oxygen atoms surrounding it. Then there's another phosphorus, 2 more oxygen atoms. Now these are the legs of that double helix. These are the legs. Now the ladder steps on it, they become the adenine, the guanine, the cytosine, and thymine, the ATCGs. It turns out hydrogen, they used to think that energy, the body transferred or understood the energy information through electricity. They're finding out it's through frequency. Well, guess what hydrogen sounds like? It's a key of E. Guess what, and it's the color yellow. That's what proper physics gets you to. Oxygen is a chartreuse, and it's the key of F over F sharp. Now they used to, like I said, information used to be thought about as just electrical information passing on. But I got a question for you. Have you ever been at a party with some of your friends you ain't seen in 10 years, but y'all was like 14, you hung out and there was a song that came on and you was like, ah, and everybody got up and was live at that moment. Now say 10 years later you got a friend with you, he's a good guy, but he wasn't there when me and my boys formed this. So when that song comes on, our DNA tightens. There's a particular song, a scale in the genomes for each and every one of us. Now, when that song is played, when your particular prime resonant frequency is played, guess what happens? Your DNA celebrates and tightens. Everything else gets pushed out. Harmonic wave resequencing. The carbon is also the key of E and yellow. The nitrogen is G, and all these play a song. So say that the F over F sharps of the oxygen, the green, is only hitting at an F. Why? Because there's another frequency coming in from a generator over there. That's changing and causing it to change. So this F now hits the oxygen, and when it hits, the F hits the carbon, so instead of hitting as an F sharp, it hits as an F, so when it hits the carbon at an E, it doesn't hit it quite right, so the domino don't file right. So the next domino hits wrong. And so now we have malformation happening within our DNA because the frequencies are being pushed off. But when we hear our tone, we tighten back up. So yeah, I'm in the process of building the harmonic wave resequencer with another doctor who has been able to successfully cure AIDS and cancer. And it's well underway. But I wanted you guys to understand how that works. It's so simple. You do not need to tear the human body apart when all you can do is use frequency to bring it back to its normal space.
Great, thank you for that question. Yeah, let's go to you.
Thank you so much. I've always been interested in acting, so it's pretty cool to be in the presence of an actor. But my question actually has to do with your numbers theory. So if by your logic you say 1 times 1 equals 2, are you insinuating that 1 times 0 then equals 1?
Equals 1. Well, that's what we were saying with the identity principle, the identity property. It says that 1 times nothing equals nothing. Something, so now you have the laws of physics have to now adjust because something just disappeared. Conservation of energy, energy can't be created or destroyed. So if 1 times 0 equals 0, then what happened to the energy of the 1? Isn't that the same problem that Stephen Hawking was talking about with the event horizon and the information going in and still being present? That conflict that was started? Well, that's because of the math. The principles in the math are not founded on truth. It's not founded on substance. The identity principle, anything times 0 is 0, and anything times 1 is 1. Where is that number? Where is that exemplified in nature or in universal phenomena? Is it? Do you see that?
So then, are you saying that 1 times 5 would be 6?
Yes. Well, what does it say in the associative and commutative thing?
So you're
if A and B
proposing-
are positive integers, it says if A and B are positive integers, A is to be added to itself as many times as is indicated by units in B.
So you're not proposing an audit, you're proposing like a
Well, I'm not the first one
reconstruction
to
of
say
the way
we
we
need to do
understand
this.
math.
You know what's interesting? In 1856, a man from Liverpool named Richard Dover Statter challenged the Dewey Decimal System and said that it was wrong and created an entirely new system to show how it can be brought into correction. So I'm not the first person to state this. It's a number of people did it, but look up Richard Dover Statter. Try and find him. You won't find him because he's been erased from history almost. But what is the thing called, honey?
It's called the decimal something.
Dewey Decimal System as a whole. The Dewey Decimal System as a whole. And you will see that we are headed to, the Titanic is headed to an iceberg over there with our numbers. If we don't make a change soon, we're going to crash as a species because our math needs to work in order for our science and our future to develop.
Sorry, one last question. I'm so sorry.
Go ahead. Go.
Do you think it's do you think that the reason that we have like economic crises, for example, is because we are not understanding our numbers correctly according to your theory?
Well, I think we have an economic problem because we are the only creatures in this universe that use currency. There are no other creatures that use currency in order to exist. Why is it that we chose this strange thing that isn't even real? Other creatures, they drink water, they eat fruit, they eat other animals. We exchange with currency, and our system of exchanging with currency is flawed because of greed. There's not like if 1 times 1 equals 2, we've got an equilibrium of balance. 1 times 1 equals 1, you've got loss. When 1 times 1 equals 3 or more, you're talking about over unity and supersymmetry. And that's how you get the universe to work for you. Instead of using just the solar voltaics off of it, you also use the piezoelectric effects of it. You use other things to make greater unity. But 1 times 1 equaling 1, when it could also equal a pound times a pound equaling a pound, when it could also equal $4 or $10 or $100, does that make sense to you? Do you think the banks are abusing that? What's a quarter times a quarter? If I ask anybody in this room, what's a quarter times a quarter? That's 25 times 25. The computer will the calculator will tell you it's 6.25 cents. But we know 25 pence times 25 pence is 625 pence. That's 6 pounds and 25 pence, but the computer or the banks only have to give you 6 1/4 cents reference for it. Or let's say you put a dime times a dime. Go ahead, let me get this out. Say you pay a dime times a dime. You put that in your calculator, it says 1 cent. 0.10 times 0.10 is 1 cent. But we know a dime times a dime is a whole dollar. But the banks gives us money based on that evaluation. Is that fair? And I might get shot about talking about this right now, but I've got a book coming out called Does a dollar times a dollar equal a dollar, or does a dollar times a dollar equal $2? And in the process, not only do I explain the death of the Platonic solids, but I also introduce the new Terrarian wave conjugations that replace this Euclidean way of life and gives us a three-dimensional way of seeing the world. That's what I'm saying. Do you want to see the world in 2D or do you want to see it in 3D?
Thank you.
Because our math right now is 2D. Our math is black and white and stick figures. I want the world in multicolor, spectral vision. That's it? I can go home?
I think we have time for one more.
Who speaks up first? This dude, his energy is there. Go. Strong energy too, man, but.
You said that a dollar times a dollar is $2?
Huh?
You said that, say, a pound times a pound is 2 pounds?
A pound times a pound should be 2 pounds.
Yeah.
If action
but
times
when
action.
you multiply those two things together, you get a pound squared.
A pound squared, yeah.
That the unit gets squared as well.
1 squared. Say that again. Will you use the mic? So I can hear you.
So you're saying 1 pound times 1 pound is equal to 2 pounds. But it's 1 pound squared, which doesn't make any sense because you've got a squared unit.
Squared. 1 pound squared.
You can't, can you divide pounds? Can you divide money? If you can divide it, you can multiply it. What, a pound times a pound? What, a pound squared, 2 pounds? That 2 pound, 1 squared. Well, you know, it's funny, I actually patented 1 squared. All these things that I showed you guys, I've patented all these things. You know why I patented them? Because in 1926, a man named Walter Russell wrote a book called The Universal One, and in it he introduced an entirely new periodic table, and there he introduced the 2 heavy water elements, and then plutonium and deuterium. Both of those, all 4 of those elements that had never been discovered, he sent out to 800 different universities in his book. 2 years later, he watched as other people came and got Nobel Prizes for his work. Why? Because he didn't patent it. He didn't copyright it. So I copywrote all these things and patented all these things before bringing them to you. They are true, and I think there's some value to them. I don't know why I said that. Did I?
I think they're thinking that the entire money system is off, or we're just thinking the decimal system.
Yeah, it's the decimal system that's off. The money is, there's nothing wrong with the money, but how we deal with the money. But if you can divide money, you can multiply it. It works hand in hand. Okay, or you can't see that. You can't see dividing
Well,
money.
it's a matter of definition. If you define, it's a matter of definition. A pound squared is not a unit defined.
A pound squared.
If you multiply by mathematical convention, if you multiply 1 pound by 1 pound, same as if you multiply 1 meter by 1 meter, it should be 1 pound squared or 1 square meter.
It becomes 2. Why does it become 1 pound squared is 2, isn't it? Now, if you look at remember what I just said about the associative and the commutative laws. It says A is to be added to itself as many times as its units in B. And the only thing that prevents that is the identity element that sits up and says, no, the Jim Crow law sits. Black people sit in the back of the bus because that's what the law says, without even having a foundation for it. 1 times any number is that number without a foundation, with no principle. It just says it.
But if you go by your logic and you say 1 times 1 is 2, 1 times 2 is 3, and then how would you define 2 times 4? Is that's
that stays, all that remains the same. Anything with 1, just add 1. The first rule of multiplication.
Okay, then where's the difference between addition and multiplication?
Well, multiplication is what? Exaggerated addition, isn't it?
But isn't it a matter of mathematical convention?
What is?
If it was defined in the beginning, it could have been defined differently, but logical, it makes the
Use
most
the
sense.
mic, darling.
Sorry. Is it a matter of mathematical convention? If you define beforehand that something, logically, it makes the most sense that 1 times 1, if you have one laptop, 1 times a laptop is 1 laptop, that makes more sense than you say it's 2 laptops.
Well, now if you say...
And then that's where the mathematical convention comes in. And that's large part of math is convention. It's how it has been defined. It's a matter of definition.
And it's wonderful. The convention is all right if the material and the information being shared in the convention is true. But when you're talking about dogma being added in, with that thing that I showed you, did you look at the square root of 2? Do you think that that's a loop, that's a natural thing with the square root of 2? Did you believe that?
It's the same with pi. There's not a mathematical...
No, it's not the same though. It's not the same with pi. What we just did, we multiplied it, we cubed the number, and then we divided it by 2, and we cubed it again and divided it by 2, and we did that a number of times, and that number still remained the same exact number, which we know cannot happen. It's right there. And that's what they say is the difference between, that's what they say allows 1 times 1 to equal 1, because 1, 1.414213562373095 ... is the square root of 2. But we know that that's not the case because it's illogical. That loop makes it invalid.
I'm afraid that is all we have time for. So please join me in thanking Terrence Howard.